Hello everyone, my name is Dave Partner and this is your final tutorial on Swagger. In this tutorial, we will just run through everything we've done so that if you missed anything, you will get it back. Now the first thing we did was visit editor.swagger.io. This is the online editor for Swagger, but all it does is helps you to write YAML and convert to JSON so that you can easily download the JSON format. You will still need something called Swagger UI. So to get Swagger UI, you visit swagger.io and from there you can get it. So another way we just got it directly was just to come to our command line and run npm install g-swagger. We ran this and it's installed Swagger for us. Then we ran the second one that was install Swagger UI. Then we ran the last one that was Swagger dist. So we installed three things and then we cloned Swagger editor. So this is the official Swagger homepage. We came to tools, clicked on editor, and then it gave us the link to GitHub where we will clone our Swagger editor. So you hit on download, takes you to a page where there's a GitHub link. And here's the GitHub link. We click on it and then it took us to this page. We simply cloned this. We copied this URL, went to our code and ran git clone and hit enter. This simply installs Swagger editor in the folder that we were working on. Now what we did was open that folder and copy the contents of Swagger editor into a folder that we just called Swagger editor. So our Swagger editor is in this folder. The reason is that we wanted to keep our Swagger editor separate from our Swagger UI, because what our end users see is Swagger UI. What we are working with is Swagger editor. So it's inside the Swagger editor that we installed Swagger UI. So we opened a new command prompt inside Swagger editor by holding the shift key and right clicking on our keyboard and opening window. So we installed Swagger UI and locally. So we did npm install save. This adds Swagger UI to your node modules folder inside the present working directory. Save. We did Swagger UI, then afterwards we did Swagger dist. So these two commands install Swagger UI and Swagger dist inside this folder that is inside our Swagger editor. So when we open the folder, we scroll down to Swagger dist. Swagger dist is the main folder we're looking for, so we simply copied it and pasted the contents outside our Swagger editor. So we have our Swagger UI outside our Swagger editor, so that once a user hits our URL, they see our Swagger UI and not our Swagger editor. Alright, and then the next thing we did was to write a gulp task, and we wrote that gulp task inside the Swagger editor. We first of all installed gulp by running npm install. We installed gulp globally. This install gulp, and then we ran this one to install gulp command line, and that installed gulp CLI for us. Now that we have gulp, we went back to our folder and created a file called gulpfile.js. It must be named this, and then we pasted our gulp code. This code simply has two tasks. One, to convert the swagger.yaml file that we created inside our node modules folder to a JSON file that we have in our Swagger editor. So this is inside our Swagger editor, and this is inside our node modules inside our Swagger editor folder. This is our Swagger UI and this is our Swagger editor. I should just put it here. Swagger UI, and this is our Swagger editor. So once we have this file, we now wrote the second task that simply watches for changes. Once we change this, this task will run. That's what this task actually does. Now the next thing we did was to start Swagger editor from our command line instead of from our browser, because our browser will always remember the last thing we did. So even if you refresh, your changes may not appear. So it's always best to start your Swagger editor from your command line. So we started our Swagger editor by typing Swagger project edit. And what this simply does was pull up our default browser and open Swagger editor. And this particular Swagger editor is constantly updated because we've written a gulp task so that once we are editing something on the left side, it's automatically updating the Swagger JSON file on our Swagger UI. So we have our Swagger UI here, and we created this JSON file. This is the JSON file that is converted from our YAML file. Now remember that in this index.html, we had to edit it to change the default URL to there is a URL that comes with it that points to the official Swagger pet store JSON. We removed that and put our own local JSON file. And with this, we had our Swagger UI well-documented API up and running. Now, the last thing I want to show you through is the Swagger docs. Everybody needs to read the Swagger documentation. I admit that it's not very well detailed. That is why this video was necessary. So, but when you get to Swagger editor, you see there are two things, the specifications and the tools. So if you hit on the specification, you see what Swagger expects you, the syntax Swagger expects you to write. That is what you have here. So I advise you basically run through it so you know what Swagger expects of you. But then Swagger also has something called Open API Specification, which is a very long document on GitHub. You can access it from this link, or you can go to your command prompt and run Swagger docs. It opens your default browser and opens the Open API Specification. Swagger Open API Specification. Now there you are supposed to run through it to get a grasp of the kind of syntax Swagger is expecting you to write in YAML. As you can see, it's very detailed. So thank you very much. I hope by this point you can document any API and have your API consumers test it and really appreciate the wonderful work you've done. Now, if at this point you've not subscribed to my channel, I advise that you subscribe. Go to youtube.com/c/brain10org and subscribe. And not only that, do share these videos and these links to your friends and groups so that they can join this tutorial too. So thank you very much. If you have any question, remember that the codes for this API and everything I've done, it's on my GitHub. Go to github/DaveOzalo and that brings you to my GitHub account. I have so many repositories. You find the ones that have to do with the keyword Swagger. As you can see, I have over 50 repositories. You find the one that has to do with Swagger and you will see the codes that I've used for this tutorial. If you have any questions, under each of my repositories, I do put my contact details. If you scroll down, you'll see my contact details, my email, and how to contact me on Facebook. I respond instantly to both, and then you see my other links. So thank you very much. I appreciate that you took this tutorial to this point, and let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you. See you in the next series of tutorials.